worst case scenario, run out of money and can't afford to support yourself financially and end up sleeping on your best friend's couch until you find another job. Boom, wrote that down. So I'm like writing down all the worst case scenarios so I can see what it looks like to really, like the absolute worst, right? Cool, once I finished that, on the other side I wrote best case scenario. What does this look like if it goes well?
Thank you so much for watching the Work and Play podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Boss Up Conference, which is a community for entrepreneurs, CEOs, celebrities, and corporate executives to come together, network, and solve some problems. Thank y'all so much for being supporters of the Work and Play podcast. And thank you for watching the Work and Play podcast and all the episodes before. Now let's get back to the episode. Welcome to the Work and Play podcast, where we talk to people who about their career journeys, life transformations, transitions, and self-actualization, which we talk all about through your story and whatever that means to you. So this person right here, if you have not already been tuned in, is someone who actually, if you look at his social media, though you don't post a lot, is the epitome of work and play. And I don't say that often, because what I believe is work and play is not a balance. It's just that they merge, that your work is play. And you live in Mexico right now. You live in Mexico. You say remote working, but essentially your profile picture is like you sitting at the laptop, literally working. What do you have a top? Is your shirt off, or do you? No. It's just like, okay, but
it's not the Corona.
It could be though. Like you literally look like work and play all in itself. So that was my introduction to you. I also got a chance to be on the morning meetup, and you taught us about Facebook ads. And I also got a chance to witness you today at the content creation boot camp. So I've gotten to see you in different elements of your professional journey. And then as soon as I talked to you, I'm like, oh yeah, you were on vacation last time I saw you. You were like, nah, I live in Mexico. so without further ado, would you mind introducing yourself so we can get back into this conversation?
Yes, all right, cool. I'm David. Professional background. I went to Georgia Gwinnett College. I don't know how far back you want me to go. You want me to start professional, or you want me to start like life?
It all started
when my mom and dad.
Yeah, sometimes we do go back for real. Like, did you know you were gonna do like Facebook ads when you were younger? Sometimes I do.
No, I used to want to be a youth pastor.
Really?
Yeah.
You do seem like a very wholesome guy, though.
Yo, I love youth. I love kids. Like if like a little 3-year-old ran in here, I'll be on the floor like rolling and playing with them. I love kids.
Okay.
So, but I've always I wanted to be a youth pastor. But we'll start from the beginning, and I'll go quick. So I was born in Congo.
You were born in Congo?
I was born in Congo, and I moved to Atlanta when I was just about to turn 8 years old. So came here, about to turn 8. Actually came as a refugee. So I was born in Congo, but my mother is Rwandan. Okay. So my dad's side of the family is Congolese. My mom's side of the family is Rwandan. But I grew up with my mom. I didn't grow up with my dad. And my mom also actually grew up in Congo. But a war broke out, and she had to flee the country as a refugee because Rwandan people were getting like persecuted essentially. And so my family, like my mom, her sister, like they all had to leave. All her siblings, they all had to leave. Some of them went to London, some of them went to, and then some of us came here. So got to Atlanta, actually lived in a refugee camp in Cameroon for 8 months. People, I was like, oh, that must have been so hard. I'm like, yeah, it was hard for my mom, but I played soccer every day. I was having a blast.
This was 1990, like back in 1990?
This was in 1990, what was it, 1999.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it was 1999. The refugee camp, I think, was like like 2000, because when we got to Atlanta, August of 2000.
Okay.
And so August is the eighth month, and so we did 8 months in the refugee camp. So math, like we probably got there in January.
Okay.
So all the war stuff and all that stuff was happening in like '99 in Congo. So so came here. I only spoke French. I didn't speak any English.
What?
It was so frustrating. I was so angry. I was just the first couple months in Atlanta was just an angry couple months because I was just frustrated. And I understood math because the numbers were the same, right? But I didn't know how to answer the questions because I knew the answer, right? But I was like, I don't know how to say it in their language. And and so that was super frustrating. It took me like a year to get to the point where I was like pretty much fluent. Kids learn languages super fast
than adults.
So it, after a year I was like super fluent. But that first year was it was brutal. I remember my mom she got called into the I used to get kicked out of school all the time for fighting
because she was like, you gonna understand me.
Well, my mom, I would get suspended or whatever, and my mom would be like, "What happened? Like they said you hit some kid," and I'm like, "Yeah, because he was saying mean stuff to me." She's like, "How do you know you don't even speak English?" I was like, I could just tell by his face.
You're like, no, you said something that I was
right. So she came into the school and she was talking. They were like, "Yo, you gotta come up here. We gotta talk about David and he needs to stop." And she came and my mom. She spoke English because she learned it in school, but I didn't because I was when I left I was in second grade. And I think she learned it in maybe college or something. So, she was kind of telling, she was like, yeah, the teacher's saying that, you're acting up and doing this and that. And she's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, it's because of the way that she keeps treating me. It's making me angry pretty much. Yeah. And she's like, well, what is she doing? And I was like, well, basically, I told her in French, and she told the teacher, she was like, okay, he's saying that that he doesn't speak English, and you're asking him questions in front of the entire class to make him look stupid on purpose.
Ooh, bruh, your mom peeped that just off of you telling your story?
And she was like, the teacher obviously wasn't doing it intentionally. She's probably just trying to include me. But then she broke down crying because she was like,
the teacher did?
Yeah, because she was like, I had no intention of making him feel, you know what I'm saying? She felt so bad. And so that first year was just brutal. But after that, it was once I could communicate, life got fun. I was all right, now we can have a good time. Stop hitting y'all. We're all friends.
That was a frustration.
Oh yeah, so she was she explained it to the teacher, and we hashed all that out. And it took me a year. After a year, I was good. And the city I grew up in when I got here, I don't know if you know where Clarkston is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up in Clarkston.
There's a large refugee population out there.
I think over 95% of the refugees that get resettled in Georgia get resettled in Clarkston. Right. So it's basically they just put refugees in the hood pretty much. But for me it was really cool because I grew up with African Americans were half my friends, and the other half was a mix. It's African Americans and just people from everywhere, Bosnia, Vietnam, Sudan. My friends, it was the most diverse place ever. And for me, it was normal. I didn't realize it wasn't normal until I left. Right? Because in high school, my mom was like, "Yo, we have to get out of here because you are either gonna end up in jail or dead." Because just all my friends, I mean, to me they're still they were just normal kids, but everybody was involved in something that they weren't supposed to be involved in. And she was just seeing me kind of always being in that mix, right?
Towards that.
But these
and you're brown skin, so you identify with the brown people, and in America are brown 100%. People, especially if you're in the hood. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. You could have totally went a whole different route.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I was going a whole different route. Yeah. But again, like, I think when you're in that environment, everything feels like normal. It's not till you get out of it that you see it as something different, right? Like, but when you're in it, it's just life, right? So, so she was like, yeah, you're like, we got to get you out of here, because we didn't come here for you to end up either being in jail or like dead because you're blah blah. Like, we would see the news. My mom would watch the news at night, and she would see like this whatever was shot, and like I would always know who I would just know who it was. It was people that I knew and I was close to, and she'd seen me around, and she was just like, he's too close to this. He needs to get out.
Wow.
So she decided to move. So we moved to Grayson in Gwinnett County.
Okay.
And that was like
Gwinnett though.
Yeah, she was like, I think. So her sister had been living there my aunt had been living there for like years.
Okay.
So I think it might have been a proximity thing to her sister, and she was also like, oh, they have really good schools where my aunt lived. So she, because Grayson High School was like super good school, like they had, really good school. So she was like, cool, we'll go there. Culture shock like crazy. I get there and I'm like, yo, this is like, especially being in Clarkston, because that diversity in Clarkston is like unmatched in the state of Georgia, maybe in the country. Like it's
And you're not just talking about diversity, like, okay, there's black and white.
There's
so many other cultures, and you have black people.
Yeah,
that's a whole other diversity than what I can imagine you experienced in Gwinnett.
Right. So that, like, getting there, it was just crazy. I mean, I'm glad that was a really good decision on her part, like strategically for my life, because I don't know if you've heard of like the concept of a bell curve. Okay, so like if you, or like just the law of averages, that type of stuff, where the average person is gonna be somewhere in the middle of whatever group that they're in, right? Like they might not be like super outlier on the far left side or on the far right side. They'll be somewhere in the middle, most people, right? Then you have a few people who are way over here, a few people who are way over there. So when I get to Grayson, everybody is talking about like, oh dang, yo, I gotta get such and such GPA because this school requires me to have a 3-point this, and right now it's this, but and I'm like, I never heard anyone talk about this stuff, right? So I'm like the oddball out. So now I gotta figure out what the heck is going on just so I can fit in.
You know? Fitting in is a whole nother thing when you're like everybody's trying to get a 3.9 just so that they can get to the top. Oh, well, let me fit in.
But so it's like just being in that environment put me in a situation where it's like, like again, I told you, I was like, before we started recording, I've always been a terrible student. If any of my teachers watch your podcast, they'll be like, yeah, he was a terrible student. But just being there made me, like, my friends would tell me like, yo, bro, you got to get it together because you got to get to college and and none of my friends in Clarkston would have said that, not because. And some of my friends in Clarkston are some of the smartest people I've ever met. Yeah. Like, way smarter than me. Yeah. But it's just the environment we were in. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That's a whole other podcast episode. But it was just a completely different environment. The mindset that they had, that my new friends had, and my old friends had. Yeah. And they would push me to do things that for them was like the norm. Like I was behaving as abnormal when I wasn't doing some of these things. So they're like, yo, you tripping, like, you know?
That's not cool. You're not getting an A.
So anyway, so go to Grayson, and I think the only reason I even went to college was because I was in that environment.
And just for the people who don't live in Atlanta, Gwinnett, and you mean like diverse, you went from a diverse community to all white, predominantly white, right?
Predominantly white. There was some black kids, but I remember getting there, and the very first thing I thought to myself was, this is where all the white people are, because I always seen them on TV, and this sounds crazy like saying it out loud, but I just never in my life, going from, like, think about it, I went from Africa to this place that's like the hood mixed with refugees from around the world.
Yeah.
My entire life.
Yeah.
And then like the suburbs of Georgia. Right?
True.
So it was just like, holy jeez, like I've never seen this many white people in one room in my life.
So you lived your whole first part of being in America, not even knowing like what America really looks like.
No, I did. Yeah. I thought I was living in America. I thought, and I was like, I literally remember one white kid growing up. His name was Kyle. I don't know any other white kids from my childhood other than Kyle.
That's crazy.
And he was like the one white kid in my middle school. And it was like Kyle and this other dude named White Mike.
White Mike? Okay.
That was it. Like I don't remember anything.
Dang. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, so I get there and I'm like, wow, culture shock. But it was just like, to me it was like, this is cool. Like I saw y'all on TV, but nice to meet y'all.
Yeah. Did you have any preconceived notions of like what it would be like hanging out in a predominantly white space?
No.
Based on TV or none of that?
Not at all. Like, no, because so this might get into a deeper conversation about
these conversations.
Because and this I learned a lot from my African American friends, like from just being like spending a whole week at their house, hanging out with them, like just being I would just always be sleeping over at my friend's house and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so just seeing, I remember being in second grade. I won't say his name, but there's this kid that I used to hang out with, and he was also in second grade. This is when I first moved here. Mm-hmm. And he would say stuff to me like, yo, David, you gotta watch yourself, because the white man's always trying to hold us down.
Second grade,
right? And obviously he probably heard this at home
from
or
his
something.
Parents.
And I was so confused because I didn't know what he was talking about, because the type of oppressive systems that exist in a lot of African countries are very different from the oppressive systems that exist in the United States. So like it's just different, right? So that type of thing was like confusing, one, because I was a kid, but even just coming from Africa to the States, I think if I'd have been even a teenager, I still wouldn't have immediately got it, because the history is so different. Like the United States has this history of like the civil rights movement and like all the, you know what I mean? Like it's a completely different thing, and it's one history because it's a country. Yeah. Whereas in Africa, there's so many countries that all have their own relationship. So fun fact, and if you go to Africa right now, it's a shame, but I can't remember how many countries there are in total. Out of all the countries in Africa, I want to say like two, maybe three. It's single digit number. That don't speak a European language. Ooh. Right? So almost every single African country that you go to speak, like in Congo, they speak French because they were colonized by Belgium, who speaks French. In Nigeria, they speak English because they were colonized by the British, who speak English. In Angola, they speak Portuguese because they were colonized by the Portuguese. Right? So, but they all speak their own languages too. But like the languages that are normally taught in schools, or like the business languages, it's some European language, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit different than the American Black history, because there's like it's each, because they're all there. You have all these people that have a history with a different European country, right? Where that's not the case here, right? Like it's the same oppressive system coming from the same place, right? Yeah. Whereas in Africa, it's like all over the place. Yeah,
the oppression looks different. And the systems are different. I understand.
Yeah. And so, and the exploitation is different. Like how the exploitation works is different. Like here, like there, a lot of times the land gets exploited, right? So like the minerals, the gold, the diamonds, the the cobalt, all this stuff. Right?
I mean, as I would say, people were exploited until they drained Africa dry of all the good people that they could get. I'm not to say that there are no more good people there, but I'm like, y'all sucked the human capital. So Cliff. Oh, I'm gonna say this name. Break that up. So this friend of mine that was telling me this, he kind of like was introducing me to like the oppressive system that existed in second grade.
In second grade, so, without knowing it, of course. But he just made me think like, what is this guy talking about? The white man's trying to hold us down. Why? What did we do? Like I was just because I'm thinking, what did you and I do? Like, I thought he was talking about us as in me and him. Right. I'm like, what are you going to do? Yeah. Anyway, so
I'm curious. Okay, so I'm curious thinking about you. There's so much, and we have to get into your story as an adult.
We will.
But there's so much that to be said about the racial trauma that an African American experiences when it comes to success. That 100%. Your mom strategically took you out of that environment and put you in an environment where, success was the norm, which is a great thing. But I think the trauma that's passed down to your friend,
right,
and then whoever's in his family, it's such a negative virus that it almost like counteracts any level of success. You would have to be plucked out of your environment one by one, which still doesn't do very much for the culture. No. But I think it's a two-edged sword because you don't want that trauma because you can't reach a level of success, but you also don't want to be plucked out of your environment without the culture that at least the little bit of culture African Americans do have. So it's a great thing that your mom plucked you out. And
it was very helpful. And seeing the contrast between those two groups of friends, I like how Marcus was talking about today, like just taking time to think. I spend a lot of time just thinking. Like I'll go on walks by myself or drives by myself for like hours, and I'll use the voice memo app on my iPhone, hit record, and just start talking. How I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what my blockers are, what I want to accomplish, why haven't I accomplished it, and I'll just let it all out. I won't really think too much about it. I'll just let it all out into this voice recording, and then I'll go back later and re-listen to what was coming out.
Really?
And it might not work for everybody. For me, it's like the number one thing that helps me like just move forward, just get unstuck when I'm feeling stuck.
I like that. So what this crazy thing is, and transparently, and I'm not gonna go too much in my thing, but what I told Marcus today was that I've been having this future blocker thing. I audio journal my thoughts. I even write my thoughts sometimes. I'm more so audio these days because I don't be having time to write. But I would say 99.999% never go back and re-look at my videos, my audio, or my writing. And then if I do, it's like a Facebook reminder, like, this is what you said 11 years ago. I'm like, oh, she was smart. But I'm still I'm only like in a cycle of positive reinforcement, and I'm not going back and looking at those blockers. So
no, for me, the reason I do that is I particularly struggle with like the way my thoughts come. It's really scattered, and it's when like the way you're listening to me right now, I'm speaking and you're just listening, right? It's hard for me to listen to the voice in my head when it's in my head. So I have to I have to get it out of my head so that I can listen to it. It sounds like weird because like, can't you just hear your thoughts? I can, but I can't hear them in a linear fashion. It's like not linear. So it like I need to hear it in a linear fashion. So I have to just let it out. And then I go back and I can do this. Where I'm just sitting there like this. And just listening to what he's saying. And I'm like, and sometimes it's like the thing that when I just hear it out loud, I'm like, bro, that's such a simple solve. I just needed to hear it. But like that's such a simple solve. Like that's already fixed.
I love that. I'm literally going to go back and listen to my journals. Because I hear what you're saying. I think I think my issue, and I swear we're gonna get out of me, but the blocker, when you don't know what it is, when you don't know what your blocker is, and for those of us who are good listeners, if you really take the time to listen to yourself, you'll be able to find what those roadblocks are. And like you said, it might seem like a really simple solve if you just allow yourself to hear yourself out.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
When did you start that?
Years ago.
Years ago?
Yeah, I've been doing it for like, I would do it a lot with my goals. Like if I had goals that I had written down, I would take that list of goals. I don't know if you ever like write goals down, but if you like, I would take that list of goals and I would go for a walk.
Yeah.
And I would read, so I'd read like goal number 1 is this. And then I would just talk through it like, okay, so what do we have to say about this goal? Dang, okay, well I haven't really been working on this as much as I should because this and that. But like, why is that? Why? And I'll just like let words come out, just let it come out. And yeah, I've been doing this for years. Like,
I love that.
Yeah, I'd go on drives in my car and do it.
I think that's a key. I think that's a key to success. And I mean, like you said, Marcus said, sit down and think. And so many of us get like, even myself, get like lost. Like, okay, so what do I do when I think? But I think you can spend that time listening to yourself. Like even for the busiest person, I would say the reason I don't go back is because like who has another hour to go back and listen? But if you give yourself an hour of listening to yourself, that's just as valuable, I guess, as sitting down meditating, right?
Yeah.
But it's probably even more valuable because you're processing your own thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, do you listen to podcasts?
Absolutely.
So like the time you take to listen to podcasts,
I can be
just listen to your
myself.
own podcast. Yeah.
That's dope. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in college, high school.
So we're in high school. So I thought this was going to be way quicker, but we're in high school. And so in high school, I'm getting now the chance to compare the two realities that I've gotten exposed to at this point. And I can see the impact that the new reality is having on me. And I'm like, this is interesting. And it's all happening because of environment. I'm not any different. I'm the same dude in a new environment.
Yeah.
That's literally all that's changed. And I'm observing like the changes and it's almost making me a little bit sad because I'm now thinking about my friends from Clarkston and I'm like, so what about them? Right?
Survivor's remorse?
I don't know if it's survivor's remorse or I think I felt a sense of just, because I didn't feel like I didn't feel guilt. Okay. I felt sadness because I didn't see how they could get what I'm getting. Like I was like, because I didn't feel guilt or anything like that. Like dang, I have this and nobody else does. I just felt like, dang, like just what, like this one simple thing has made such a drastic difference in the way that I think about life and the value that I had no value for my life in Clarkston. Like I was okay with dying tomorrow. I didn't care. Yeah. And like that changed. Like when, you know what I'm saying? Like when I got out of that environment. And I don't think it's Clarkston as a whole. I think my friend group too had a lot to do with it. I think we all had a certain mentality that was just that, like that. So I don't think it's this, I don't want to say like, oh, Clarkston's this terrible place. Yeah. Like it's not. It's actually just the friend group that I had, which I love, but it was just, we all had a certain mentality and we didn't value life. And moving out, I started seeing all these things and I was like, well, now I value life, but it's not because, it's just because the environment and everybody values life. Like, so now all of a sudden, like, I'm just being normal. I'm just being whatever's normal in this environment, right? Yeah. And so that was kind of difficult because I was struggling to understand why it was that some of my friends who were African American, specifically African American, like, why is it that they're in this situation that they're in, and like their parents were in this situation, and like their parents were in this situation. Like I couldn't figure it out. It was like really bothering me. Like, you know, this is me as a high schooler just sitting in my room just thinking about the world's problems.
problem. At this point, you're starting to become aware of the world's issue.
Yeah, and it was like, it just made me sad because I was like, dang, so like, what's the fix? Mm-hmm. Like, how do they get help? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, and why, like, yeah, it was just really confusing. And I still don't really have the answer. I think and the reason I'm even like talking about this with you on this podcast is because on the off chance that there's some kid that listens to your podcast that has a similar background, mm-hmm. I just want them to hear that, like, yo, there's different ways. Because mm-hmm. when I was growing up, I never heard the term graphic designer. I never heard the term software developer. I never heard the term data analytics. Mm-hmm. There's all these roles that I know about now, mm-hmm. these options that I'm aware of, that I just wasn't aware of. No one in my community was aware of these options. Yeah. Right? But everyone in the new community knew them. They knew all these different options that they had. Like one of my closest friends that I met when I moved to Grayson, another African American kid too. Well, yeah. Yeah, so he I was about to say he's actually Jamaican. Okay. Gotcha. But he grew, he was born here, he was mm-hmm. raised here and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, yeah, I want to be a corporate lawyer. I was like, what the heck is that? Mm-hmm. And this is like 10th grade, right? And like my 10th grade friends from my old neighborhood, like me included, never heard nothing like that. He's like, yeah, I want to be a corporate lawyer. Then I meet this other guy and he's like, yeah, I want to be an accountant. And I meet this other guy and he's like, yeah, I want to be like a knee surgeon. And I'm like, it's like all these people who are just, I'm like, dang, y'all are aware of so many options. So that was a huge like turning point in life for me. Mm-hmm. And then in the summer between graduating high school and going to college, I went to Georgia Gwinnett College in Lawrenceville. Mm-hmm. In that summer in between, I have an uncle who lives in Africa. He's a real estate investor. Like, he's doing really well for himself. He was like, yo, as a graduation gift, I'm gonna fly you out to Africa so you can hang out with us for the summer, because we haven't really seen you since you guys left.
That's a bomb gift.
Great gift. So he got me a ticket out, flew out there, and got to hang out with some of my family members there and like see him and stuff. And it was so inspirational. I remember, so he's an architect, mm-hmm. And he's a real estate developer as well. Nice. Yeah, so it's really cool. So he like be designing his own buildings and hotels and stuff.
Yes, like you don't need to get anybody else, like, that's cool.
You need to have him on your podcast. But yeah, so I remember just being at his house too. Had this dope like mansion. It was beautiful. It had this pool and this lush garden in the back with a full bar with like actual alcohol in the bar, like. And
that's crazy, because you came to America, you see diversity, but you see more view, and we don't have a pool in a nice state. And then you go to Gwinnett, you're like, oh, they're living life. Well, if we leave it there, then African Americans, we would think they have the nice things and we don't. But then you go to when we say back home.
So when I went back home, I actually went to Rwanda.
You went to Rwanda.
It's my mom's family. Yeah. Okay. So my mom's Rwandan, so I went to go see her family. Mm-hmm. So I go there. So this dude is like G-Wagon parked out front, Jaguar parked next to it, and the Mercedes Benz that he doesn't drive with TVs. And this one when TVs were cool to have in the back on the little head thing. And he's like, oh, David, you want to go stop hanging out with us? Go he's your age. Yeah. He's like, here. He literally tosses me the keys to the Mercedes. He's like, here, take the car and go meet some people. I'm like, bet. I get in the car and I know how to drive at this point. So
do you know you going though?
No, I'm super adventurous. So I get in the car and I'm like, it's manual. It's stick shift. I don't know how to drive this. We don't drive this. I had to take that walker shade back in the house, give him the keys back and call a taxi.
It was fun while it lasted. Live this moment up.
No, but he's like balling. And I remember I was like, So I'm just bumming at this point. I'm like 18 years old. I'm just bumming at his house, and I remember one day I woke up. I went out to like that little garden area, and he was there, and I think he was like having breakfast, or he was having like some tea and whatever. And I was like, "Yo, Unc," because I wasn't really sure what he did at that point. I just knew he had a lot of money, and I was like, "Yo, Unc, aren't you supposed to be at work?" And he looked at me like I was he looked at like the look he was like, "Supposed to be."
Oh,
he felt disrespected. He was like, no, I asked him, I was like, "Don't you have to be at work?" And he's like, "Have to be?" He's like, I don't ever have to be anywhere." And I was like, "What?" Because literally my whole life I've seen you wake up, you get ready for work, you go to work, and you work, and then you come home, and then you do the same thing. I'd never met anyone who doesn't do that. No one, zero people. He was the first human being that I met that broke that.
Yeah.
And I was so confused. I was like, "What do you mean you don't have to be at work?" Like, and we just started talking, and he's like, "No, like this is what I do." And like, I have this guy does this, and this lady handles that. And
he had a team.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was walking you through his business. Yeah,
not in like super detail, but just to get me to understand why he's sitting here drinking tea, when everybody else is at work.
So this is your first inkling did he tell you it was entrepreneurship at the time?
No. But he just told me that like he runs his own business. Yeah. Right? So I don't think he said the word entrepreneurship. He told me I own my own business, right? And like later I learned the word entrepreneurship.
Like, oh, that's what my uncle does.
Yeah. So, but that was it for me. That moment when I was 18 and bumming in my uncle's backyard, just enjoying my summer, was the moment that I was like, that's what I want. But at that point, I just wanted what he had. Right? I was like, I want what he has. Right? I wasn't aware of what it takes to get there, how long it takes to get there, the failures that happen, the fear, the anxiety. Like I was just like, I just want what he got. Yeah. Like, cause this man don't have to be anywhere. And he got this bomb house with this pool in the garden. Yeah, and like a private chef that literally cooks like this man. That's like the best food I've ever eaten in my life. This guy in his kitchen is like making this dope food. I would tell the chef, I'd be like, "Hey, tomorrow for breakfast, could you make me this?" And I don't know how he always timed it. Somehow I would wake up, come downstairs, and whatever I had asked him for would be like just on a plate. And I'm like, "Yo, what is?"
You had some dream board time.
I was like, it was like, again, it was just, and I've had conversations with him as I've gotten older and like understood more, and like, but in that moment it was just like, "Yo, this guy, I want this," and I'd never seen it. And it was like the exposure to it. Like I heard someone say, you can only aspire to be something that you've seen before, right? Something that you've been exposed to. Like if you've never seen a software developer, you're not gonna just wake up one day and be like, "I need software." You don't even know what it is. You've never seen one. You've never been exposed to one.
Yeah. Even just the name. I remember I wanted to be a CPA, didn't know what
even CPA stands for.
As soon as I got to that accounting test in college, I'm sitting here like, "Oh, I gotta do what? I gotta read this." I literally saw CPA, said that's what I'm gonna be. I know math, I could do this. So let me ask you this. You got your first inkling of like what working for yourself would look like, and I'm curious. Which is
not realistic for everyone that works for themselves. But.
No, but that was your journey, and I think that's one of the things that connects your today to back then. But before I lose my thought, when we think about this time period, going from Clarkson to Gwinnett, and then even being exposed to your uncle's lifestyle, those are all like definitely things and pieces of your story that kind of environments that shape you or who you are. But I would imagine when you went to Gwinnett, you had some time to explore yourself a little bit more. So did you ever come around the concept of like, what am I good at? Or did you start to find out things about yourself that you could use in a career?
No, short answer is not really.
You didn't do that?
I was not, I was such a distracted kid who didn't have any awareness of the future. I did not think about my future. I just was just up in the air, just playing Xbox with my friends, playing basketball, playing soccer. I just wasn't really thinking about my future, or now some of my friends were, and I was doing the bare minimum to fit in.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going above and beyond like they were. Like my lawyer friend, who actually now is a lawyer. This man told me in 10th grade he wanted to be a lawyer. He's an attorney in New York City now.
Dope.
Right. Shout out to Malik Anderson.
Yeah, that's lit. Okay, so we know from the beginning of this podcast that you set your sights on entrepreneurship in college. You said, "Hey, there's no way I'm going to cross this stage because I'm going to become an entrepreneur." And we know, newsflash, we decided to go into corporate America. So what was your what was your entry point into corporate? How did you get that in?
Boy, man, if there's a man above, he's looking out. Because it's something because my GPA, and I'll be super, because it doesn't matter now, ain't nobody hiring or firing me. My GPA coming out of college was a 2.63 or something like that. Terrible. Right, again, I didn't go to class. I came, showed up, did my exams, and the rest of the time I was trying to figure out how to become an entrepreneur. And so nothing really worked out. I was repairing some iPhone screens with my best friend, and we were doing that for a while, and we kind of stopped because okay, well, we just, quick side note, one thing I've realized about myself is I've always used to think of myself as a businessman or this business person. And I remember feeling dang, yo, I don't think I'm a good businessman. I don't think I'm a good business person. And this is what I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
And I really had to sit with myself and think, and I was I am not a business person. I'm at heart, I'm a product guy. So I don't really have a passion for the business side of things.
Yeah.
I have more so a passion for strategy and product, right?
Yeah.
I could sit here and talk to you all day about
gadgets and widgets and
or even just yo, how can we create this product or a system for the podcast, and what would be the strategy to get this kind of person to watch it, and what kind of product could we create to give that person to retain them longer and keep them hooked. Just thinking, talking through this kind of stuff gets me going. But then doing real business stuff, the day-to-day grind stuff.
Yes, the tactics and the business model.
Bro.
Okay, got you. And the business strategy. Because I think you sounds because I know you're a Facebook ads guy. You could be great if you had an endless budget. But if you had to marry the financial strategic pieces of it, you're hold up, wait a minute. Now you're limiting my genius.
Not even the financial pieces of it, because that's fine. It's more so I just don't care about I have friends who are business people. They can literally go to Sam's Club, get some almonds in bulk, figure out how to sell it for a higher price, and that fulfills them.
Yeah.
If I'm bored, I can't stay engaged in just for the sake of doing business. It has to be something exciting, something new, something. Ooh. Right? It has to be that. So if I'm not excited and I'm bored, I can't just do business. Fixing iPhone screens, right? I was I saw my uncle, I want to be an entrepreneur. What can I do?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna fix iPhone screens. I didn't care about fixing iPhone screens. I don't care about this. But I thought but it was oh, this is a way for me to do business.
Yeah.
But I was no, that's not who I am. I'm not someone who just needs to do business.
Yeah.
I need to work on products I'm excited about.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good insight about yourself.
Yeah, that was very took some weight off my shoulders.
How old were you when you came to that conclusion?
A few years ago.
Yeah.
2, 3 years.
2 or 3 years ago. And just so that the people understand, when did you quit your job?
I quit my job January of 2020, but I started working on quitting my job. I quit my job in January of 2021, in this year, 2021, January 15th, I quit my job. I started working on that process of quitting my job in January of 2019.
Oh, 2 years. Huh?
Yes,
because 2020. Yes, okay, 2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but the idea that, okay, I've been doing iPhone screens, it's kind of a side hustle, huh?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is a product business. I need to be passionate about it. Like, when did you start to?
That wasn't until late. That was like, I think that was like maybe like 2019, like at the beginning of 2019, just like feeling like I've failed at every single business that like I've tried to do. Why is that? Like I keep failing at the side hustle.
Because you weren't passionate about it.
Yeah.
So were you passionate about your job? What was your day job?
No, so I had that bookmark, the whole like how did I get into corporate. So I had a 2.63 GPA, right? But like I didn't care because in my head I was like, first of all, I want to be an entrepreneur. Second of all, this number is not a reflection of me to me. I know I know that this isn't a reflection of my intelligence because when I come in these classes, when I show up, I do better on the exam than the people who've been here every day.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, it didn't make me feel some type of way about myself. It was like, that's whatever they want to think about that number, God bless.
Yeah.
But then when I was graduating, there was like not even like the last month of my being in college, I was like, dang, maybe this number does matter because now I gotta ask these people for jobs. Right. So luckily, just through just making friends in college and networking with people who I thought were cool peoples, one of my friends worked at a company called Ernst & Young, EY, and I was like, yo, bro, I'm applying for jobs. I was reaching out to a lot of people that I knew in the corporate space, like, hey, I'm graduating, I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume, slide it to whoever matters. And he was one of the people that I reached out to. And he's like, David, you don't belong here. And I was like, what do you mean, bro? He's like, I know you. You're going to hate it here. Oh. And I was like, bro, you're just saying that because you already got the job and you already worked there. Put me on, bro. He's like, I'm gonna do it, but I'm telling you, you're gonna hate it here. Yeah. It's not this. It doesn't like the environment here. This ain't you. This ain't where you're supposed to be. And I was like, bro, just slide my resume, please.
Right. Just let me get a job. Thank you. Whatever you talking about.
Yeah. Like I'm just trying to get an apartment and move out. Yeah. So I interviewed at a couple different places. Before that, one of my friends who's super, I think he actually is a CPA. I was telling him, I was like, bro, I really want to just be done with this school thing. I'm really doing it for my mom and to just kind of give this to her as a gift. I really want to be done. So I'm going to try to accelerate it and graduate early. He's like, that's a terrible idea. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's really smart. And he's a school guy. He's like an academic guy. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, first of all, to graduate without an internship or two would be a waste of going to college. You did all that for nothing. And I was like, what? He's like, just trust me, get an internship. Okay. Get to it. He's like, stay extra. He's like, you're trying to graduate early? Don't even graduate on time if you ain't got the internship. Stay longer, do the internship, then graduate. And that was the best college advice I had ever gotten.
That's lit.
I did that, got an internship, and the lady who interviewed me for the internship, we developed a really great relationship. We didn't even end up working together. When the internship started, she had taken a job somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But we stayed in touch. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to her. She got me a job interview with this company. And it was actually I turned it down. I didn't know that they called me because they knew her. I had just gotten a call from a recruiter and they were like, hey, are you interested in this position? And I was like, no, I'm not. And then they called her and was like, hey, he's not interested. So she was like, yeah, are you kidding me? I was like, oh, I didn't know, Steph. I didn't know that.
Are you interested in this position? And you said, nah, I'm actually not interested. I'm applying to a lot of places, but I'm just not interested in this one.
She's like, no, you never do that. She was like, listen, And she's like a, senior VP and stuff like. She was like, listen, never do that. Always, if you get called in for an interview, even if you're not going to take the job, just go. 2 reasons. 1, interviewing is a skill that gets developed through practice.
Right.
So go for that 1 reason. And then the more important reason is she's like, I go in for interviews all the time. She's like, I've gone in for interviews for 1 position and then been offered a position like 2 levels higher that I wasn't expecting to get just based on the conversation.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, all right, I'll call them back. She's like, yeah, call them back. I called them back. I'm like, hey, we worked it out. They're like, okay, can you come in today?
Okay.
I was like, I can come in today. I go in, have the interview, we chop it up, and so the guy who would have been my manager interviews me. We get done. That guy's manager comes in just to kind of do a closing thing and meet me and like just kind of like get an idea of who they might be hiring.
Absolutely.
And we have a conversation. He's like, talk to me about like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I was like, in 5 years, I see myself being a project manager in the technology space. Not really sure where. Blah, blah, blah. So we just had a conversation. I leave. The recruiter hits me up and he's like, hey, and mind you, the position I'm interviewing for is the one I didn't want. But I went because this lady who's like a mentor to me told me to do it. They called me back. They're like, yo, we actually want to offer you a project management position. Mind you, this is why I told this man I want to be 5 years from now.
And he's clearly saw it.
I'm not sure what he saw. He saw something. And he's like, this kid would be good for the role.
This is in a tech company?
This is what. So then, but it was like a small company, and I was like, I definitely wasn't interested in what I was interviewing for.
What was it, that business analyst or something?
I don't even remember. It was something too technical. I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, so then, but I also had Anthony at EY who, had connected.
Yeah, and he had already told you, like, this is not for you.
He told me it wasn't for me. I didn't want to listen to him because I thought, well, it's EY.
Yeah.
So I get called in for that interview too. So I told them like, yo, hold on, let me talk to these guys.
Wait a minute, but what was the internship that you had that made your resume look so good?
The internship I had was a business analyst internship. Okay. At a company called Travelport in Marietta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and that joint, I was like, maybe jobs aren't so bad because it was like an internship and they were paying me like $19 an hour.
They make it fun.
I was like, I'm rich. $19.
And the job probably wasn't as boring as a normal business analyst.
Nah, and I had a dope manager who gave me like a ton of autonomy. Like he treated me like I was a pro. Like he was like, yeah, you're gonna lead this real project that we're really working on, and you're like. And I was actually doing stuff. So when I was applying for jobs, I was able to, luckily my friend told me to do this because I had something to talk about other than the class, like, coursework. Yeah. So I go to EY interview. First interview goes, in my opinion, it went really well. I was like, yo, I got this. I got the job. Recruiter called me. He's like, yo, you didn't get the job. Like, you didn't get the job, but they just said that they were like, you'd be a great fit for the company. They told me, hey, you need to have him here. He's just not a good fit for our team. He's a good fit for the company, just not for our team.
That's good feedback.
Yeah, so they were like,
what was the position at EY that you were applying for?
It was, I don't remember, but it was in their like robotics and automation like sector, department. So it was a technical role. So they were like, he's just not technical enough, but he'd be a great fit for just to be here at the company somewhere. Just bring him in, put him somewhere here. Yeah. So they brought me back, re-interviewed for a different position in data and analytics. And that one I felt like, oh my, there's no way I got this job. Calls me back, it's like, they loved you. That's correct. They want to offer you for something. I literally was like, are you sure? Because that was really bad. Like, I bombed that interview. And I remember I was asking Anthony for advice. I was like, bro, give me some interview tips. Blah, blah. He was like, bro, just be confident. That's the worst advice. Like, tell me what they're gonna ask me. You know what I'm saying? Like, what questions are they gonna ask? Be confident.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that? He's like, trust me, bro. Like, that's all that matters. And I really felt like, yo, this man is literally giving me nothing to work with. All right, cool, whatever. He's just a bad advice giver.
You went in there like, let me tell you.
No, I'm usually like super comfortable, like, you know, I'm just really comfortable with people, and I don't get nervous for stuff like interviews or presentations and stuff like that. Like, that's just me. But I went in the interview, and usually with interviews, I feel super confident because I make it personal on purpose. So I don't let it like become a thing of just me being interviewed. I ask a ton of questions and like personal questions. Yeah. I'm like, yo, hey, this is where I'm at in my career. Like, when you were at this stage in your career, like, what do you think would have been helpful for you to know? Like, what advice would you give this version of yourself when you were where I am?
That's good.
Right? And then it forces them
to get out of that box and really connect with you.
Correct.
It
it like forces them to lose the script because they're like, oh dang, and they start thinking back when they were young and coming up. So I force that interview to be personal. I ask questions. I'm like, hey, so like, what are you guys like really struggling with here? Like what is y'all's biggest pain point? What's your biggest pain point on your team? Like, what are y'all? And then, like, oh my God, man, like this freaking and so it just turned into a conversation.
So that's what you did?
That's what I did.
And you thought it was terrible?
I did think it was terrible because there were some technical questions that I botched.
Yeah, but they liked you. They liked you. We can teach them that.
Right. And that, even the lady who hired me for the internship, I was asking her, like, yo, what software are we going to use? What da-da-da? She was like, bro, don't even worry about that. We could teach you that. We can't teach personality. We cannot teach that. So we'll worry about that stuff when you get here. So you're right. But and in hindsight now, like, I think working in corporate was so helpful for me becoming an entrepreneur because it like shaped, it developed. It's like, you know, when people go to the military and they develop a certain type of discipline and strength and ability, like how you were saying before the podcast, like the ability to like stretch your mind and your brain like beyond what you feel like that those limits are.
Right.
EY definitely did that.
I can imagine.
It definitely did that. Like it was, they expect, like, and I understood what Anthony meant when I started working.
Yeah.
They what they valued, because what EY sells, EY doesn't have like Apple sells phones. Google sells software and phones as well, and like hardware. Companies like EY, they sell smart people that can figure stuff out to other companies. That's literally all they have to give. They sell people who can walk into a room, look at a complex problem that this company's dealing with, even if they've never seen it before, and they can walk in with and like, you know, when you're dealing with client work, you want to make that person feel like, okay, we're gonna be fine. Like, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
They want people who can do that. And you can't do that if you're not confident.
Yeah.
You can't do. So then I was like, oh, that's why he kept telling me, like, oh, just be confident. That's all that matters. He didn't explain it to me. You know what I'm saying? He just said.
He probably didn't know himself.
Oh yeah, maybe.
At that age, we barely know the sauce. We just like, I got it. This is what happened to me. You know. Yeah,
so it was helpful, and it was important to be confident, like in the everyday work, right? And they pushed us to like the limit, and it just became the norm to work at like such a high output. Like, no one complained about a 16-hour day.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, oh, it's just one of those days, cool, or it's just one of those weeks, like, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
It was like the norm. So that was me getting into corporate. And then I remember one of my mentors at EY told me my very first week on the job. He pulled me aside because he was like, got assigned to be my manager. He's like, just talking to everyone on his team. He's like, yo, I'm gonna tell you something, man. Like, you're gonna know in the first 2 months of being here, you're either gonna love it or hate it. You're not gonna be in the middle. No one here is in the middle. He's like, you see all these people walking around? Everybody here either hates being here or loves being here. He's like, you see that guy over there? He's 50. This man has 3 kids and a wife at home, but he's still living this EY life where we work, 60-hour weeks sometimes, 70-hour weeks sometimes. Like, he's here because he loves being here. He loves this work, right? Like, that's why he's here at his, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's in the middle. You're not. He's like, it won't take you long to find out which group you're in.
Yeah.
It didn't take me 2 months. It took me like a couple weeks. I was like, oh my God, I hate it here. Anthony was right.
What was it? What feeling would you associate with him saying, like, you're not gonna love it, and then you experiencing, I don't love it? What was the emotion, and what was really what it was that didn't work for you?
I think the emotion that I felt was, at first, it was slow, right? So it like built up, and it got to a point where, like I said, in 2000, because I started working at EY in 2017, in this summer of 2017, and I worked there until 2019. So it was a slow build up of frustration, like feeling like what's the word? Like, there just was a mismatch between where I wanted to go in life and what I was doing in life. And I was like, every day that I live, it's like I'm living in this existence where I'm just not getting closer to that thing. It's like I see this thing in front of me, but I'm running on a hamster wheel.
Ooh.
There's motion with no progress. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And I was like, and it took a while. It wasn't immediate. It was like slowly built up, and like by 2019, I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I can't be here anymore. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, it's something wrong with the company. It was something wrong with the fit. It just wasn't a good fit for me, right? And I was like, whenever I get to that point of being fed up, I move very aggressively. So I was like, all right. So this is the crazy part of the story.
Buckle up.
This is the crazy part of the story. 2019, I was like, and I do like these New Year, not necessarily like resolutions, more like just goals. I'm like, oh, what do I want to accomplish this year? Like, what do I want to do? What would need to happen for me to look back on this year and feel like this was a successful year? And I write those things down. And so I did that, and part of that was I want to switch my method, the method by which I like acquire money. So I was like, I want to switch it from being in this data and analytics tech field to making money from from like marketing, right? When I was in college, I did like a little bit of marketing, but it was the most basic, like it doesn't even count, right? But the cool thing about that job was when I was in college, shout out to Aaron. Aaron gave me my first marketing job. I was like, yo, Aaron. It was this girl in my class named Aaron. I was like, yo, Aaron. I'm like, she worked at Shane's Rib Shack. But she worked like, not like in the store. She just managed like more corporate-y stuff. And I was like, yo. And I had already started getting like I said, I was trying everything. I tried Amazon. I tried fixing phones. I was just trying to try stuff. Yeah. And then my next thing was like marketing. I probably got targeted by some ad or something. Saw something about marketing. So I was like, oh, hey, Aaron, like I've been like learning about this marketing stuff, and I really just want to get my foot in the door. Like, if you guys are ever looking for somebody to help out with marketing at Shane's, like let me know. I'd love to help. And then she hit me up like a couple weeks later. She's like, hey, I actually talked to my boss, and she's like, we'd love to have hire you. And the pay was like minimum wage. Okay. But I was just like,
I'll take it.
I got a chance to, work on this thing, right?
Yeah.
And again, it was the most basic, insignificant marketing you could ever do.
This was back in school?
This was in college. So
okay, gotcha. So the schooling was bare minimum marketing education, and then you took this like kind of job. Not job, but this job?
Yeah, and the education too was like some stuff I was like reading online on blogs and like maybe taking a course or something like that. Yeah. And I just wanted to test it out, test out my knowledge. But the cool thing about this job was that it was my first taste of being remote. Because I would come into Shane's Rib Shack at the restaurant and be on my laptop working on stuff. And I was like, yo, Aaron, do I really have to be here? Because I drive like pretty far to come to this location. Because they were always like, they spent most of the time at one location, and that location was far away from my house. I was like, I can do this. I don't have to be here to do this. She's like, okay, let me talk to Amy real quick. She talked to her. She was like, yeah, he doesn't have to be here as long as he does the work. I don't care. And I was like, oh, dope. And that summer, so this was during the school like semester, but then like in the summer, this was spring semester. So in the summer, I didn't take any classes, but I have so my sister lives in Belgium. My two older sister and my older brother, they live in Europe, in Belgium. And I was like, yo, I want to go spend the summer with my sister. I just really missed my sister, my older sister. I was like, man, I just want to see my sister so bad. And I talked to Amy. I was like, yo, would it be cool if since I'm already working from home, can I just work from Belgium? She's like, yeah, I don't care as long as the work is done.
Yeah.
So I went to Belgium and I spent the whole summer in Europe working on the same rib.
But I just have to acknowledge the fact that simply you asking, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I mean, I can do this at home, can't I? And then, hey, I want to go to Belgium. Like, just off the strength of you asking, so many people don't ask. Yeah. So many people get stuck on, but they're going to say no or whatever. And
I ask a lot.
Absolutely.
I ask a lot.
That's cool.
And I get yeses a lot. And I've gotten yeses. When I was in college, I changed my major so many times. But what I would do is I'd reach out to people who were like, I changed my major to finance, and I'd reach out to someone in finance who worked at like a bank or something. Or I'd literally just go to Wells Fargo at my bank and just be like, yo, can I buy you lunch? And and I'd use the college kid card. Yeah. Yo, hey, I'm a college kid and I'm majoring in finance, but I'm not super sure about like what life actually looks like working in finance. Like, I'd love to like buy you lunch and just talk to you like during your lunch break about what your work looks like. And I did this all the time in college.
Did anybody teach you that?
No.
That's the crazy thing. Because I wouldn't know that unless I was a part of this career development program when I was in college, right? Okay.
Oh, you did that. You did this too.
Yeah, like so I'm a career coach, so I talk to people about this all the time, but it was taught to me, right? You came from Congo, the Congo.
She said,
you came to Clarkston, and then you went to Gwinnett. Then you go to Gwinnett, how do we say Georgia Gwinnett College. Yeah. And you're pulling moves that like, I think I paid like $200 to be a part of the program, and I'm in like PWI. I'm at a PWI, so I'm like, I didn't have the information, so I needed to go through my journey. But you're instinctively pulling moves that I coach people on, I still coach people on, and I got coached on, and you naturally took to that. Like, where could we trace that back to? Because it's like your uncle didn't even show you how to network. He just showed you that it was possible. Mom just kind of pulled you out of the Clarkson. Like, I just don't know where you get that audacity.
That's a really good question, and I don't know if I could point it back to one thing. I think it is definitely a part of my nature to be inquisitive. I've always wanted to know, so I think I've always asked questions in general. Like growing up, like people now who like I don't even have memories of this, but whenever I meet people who knew me as like a really small child, the consistent theme that comes up is like, yo, you used to ask me all these questions. And I was like, so I think that is like a part of my nature is to ask questions. So I've always just done that. So I think I saw this as just another form of that.
Asking questions. It didn't even feel like audacity. It wasn't like I'm about to break. I'm about to do something that nobody else does. Like, you literally was. I'm curious.
I'm curious.
You gotta teach people to be curious sometimes. Like, literally, what do I say? Well, what are you curious about? You know what I mean? And it's a whole you know, start from A to B for you to get curious and then say, oh, now I know what to ask someone. Yeah. Because a lot of times we choose careers. Somebody, like, so let's say you find out about CPAs and now all of a sudden you want to be a CPA, but you're not curious about it at all, which means probably you don't want to be that. So you have to kind of coach somebody to get curious about it. And you can only coach someone to get curious about being a CPA to the point where they get curious enough to ask the questions to say, oh, that's not what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But you can't teach them, hey, the CPA is what your life should look like until you get curious and ask the question. So it's a very beautiful thing that's a thing for you. Yeah, I'm very grateful to have that naturally, because I do know people who like will tell me, you know, I'm just not good at asking questions. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, and it made me realize, like, oh, so this it isn't just something that someone can decide to, that everyone can just decide to do, like, be curious and ask questions. Like, some people literally feel like I don't know how, like, I don't even know where to start, I don't know like, how do you even know what question to ask? Yeah. Right? So I do sympathize with that, and I feel like that's where maybe, I guess it depends on what it is and how important it is to you, but I think that's where maybe something like a coach might come in. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Because they know what questions but specifically, it's not, I know what questions to ask you to get just clear enough to hear maybe what you might be curious about. But even still, I can only coach you to the depths of you getting curious about that thing, because I can't go into the networking conversation and ask the questions for you. So I can't feed you the questions in like a 30-minute conversation. You never know what you're supposed to be asking. So I just think that getting a person to be naturally, not even if they're not naturally curious, getting a person to get curious is probably the best like win. Okay. So I am thinking about your and the funny thing is, you said you didn't have a skill, like you didn't necessarily know what a skill, like you didn't know what your skill was, but you've had this curiosity since you were younger. You'd call that a skill? Absolutely, I would call it a skill. I would absolutely so because I'm a coach and I'm naturally good at asking questions. We're here on this podcast because I love getting curious and picking your brain and asking you all these questions. But when the lights are off and things like that, I will go back and read a book about asking questions. Like, what questions do I want to ask? Do I want to explore your emotional side? Or do I want to explore your technical side? Like, do you have a blockage? What kind of questions do I need to ask you there? So, yeah, I am naturally curious. But I can take 2 hours to get to a goal. But if I get really clear on what questions I need to ask, we can trim this down to 30 minutes. Got it. Yeah. Okay. So, and how are we good on time? Because I don't want this is a really good interview, and we're not. Hey, I have a couple more questions that I think we need to tie up this whole thing. So, one is not necessarily audacity that makes you ask the question, but you do lead with a bit of dare I say, like, not risk taking, but you just kind of lead with a natural thing. And if we fast forward a little bit, we talked about you quitting the job, right? Yeah. And I typically call it an exit strategy. You say you wanted to have a landing. You say you want to have like a landing. Oh, a runway. A runway, right? Yeah. And tying a little bit of this up, hearing your story. A lot of times when I meet people who are descendants of immigrants or immigrants themselves, they have this whole security thing. Like, it's just like, I chose engineering because I knew this was what I was supposed to do, and this was a safe thing. And so it's like values, it's also exposure, all this, right? And even though you jumped out and you went into entrepreneurship, I hear a little bit of your like stability in you creating this runway. I keep wanting to say landing page, like, which has nothing to do with planes. So if you would tell us a little bit about your thought process behind exiting corporate, that would be cool. Okay, thought process behind exiting corporate. I didn't get to tell you the crazy story. It's okay. I want to hear the crazy story. It's really about your time. I'm good. I just don't know. Do it. Because you know how some people, like, their podcasts are always like, 45 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. And then some people, like Joe Rogan, does the 3-hour joke. Yeah. So I'm like, if she does like the
30 minutes, and then somebody sees this 3-hour podcast. Like, am I gonna mess up her stats?
Not at all. If you've made it this far in the podcast, we are in for a really cool journey because we're about to get into the.
This is the crazy. I only call it a crazy story because my friends call it a crazy story. For me, it was not crazy. It was very normal. We'll come back to it because I'll bookmark, right? But so I want to answer your question. So the way I thought about the runway thing was. So in when did the pandemic start? Like March
of 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. So around that time, like I had already been thinking like this whole thing. I forgot what Marcus called it. What do you call it? Would you tell me Marcus has the phrase for the thing that's associated to you?
What, the future stuff?
No. Like when you think of this, you think of Aria. Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean,
like when you think of this, he was like, I want people to, when they think of it was like not intellectual property.
Oh, yes, real estate, mental real estate.
So I have this concept of option units, right? And I believe that, like, I don't really like giving advice. Like, I'm gonna just say how I go about it. So I don't really think of my life in terms of like, you'll meet people like, oh, I want to make $1 million, or I want to make whatever, right? And that's fine. Like, if that's what gets you to get that, do it that way. For me, that doesn't really motivate me. I think in terms of option units. So I think, what are the options that I want to have in life? So I fill in the blank. I want to have the option to, for me, it's work from anywhere in the world. For me, it's be able to produce income. So I want to have the option to be able to produce income wherever I'm at in the world, right? So, like, for example, like David Chance, right? Like, I love this guy. Like, I absolutely love him.
We all do.
But I look at what he does, and I'm like, yo, this dude is killing it, right? And like working with him, I get to see the numbers that he's doing on the back, and I'm like, yo, this is so inspirational. It's so motivating, and it's like it reinforces my beliefs of like, yeah, I can do this. Like, but for example, I can never look at Shan's and with like, not even a negative envy, but like, dang, I want to be like Shan. I want to do that. Because it goes against my options. Because like, unless I did a Zoom podcast or something, but like, I'd have to be in Atlanta, and that would immediately not work with the options that I want to have in life, right? So I'd rather make less money, but be wherever I want and make money from wherever I am. Right? Like, because that is an option that I want to have.
Yes.
It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not necessarily a dollar amount thing.
Yeah.
Another thing is like, I want to have the option to, let's say, take care of my parents. So I'll write that down. I want to have the option to take care of my parents. I write down all the options that I want.
Yeah.
Then I write down, okay, what needs to happen for this option to come to reality? Right? And then I start trying to like reverse engineer.
That's lit.
Right? And then I'm like, okay, to be able to work anywhere in the world, I need to do, these kinds of roles, right? I need to fill these sorts of roles. Marketing was like, that was one of the reasons I actually went into marketing, because I was like, I could easily do this remotely because I know people who do it remotely, blah, blah. Software development was an option, but I was like, it's going to take too long. I'm already out of college. My parents, like, I want to take care of my parents. Okay, well, how much... What are your parents' living expenses? Right? Like, how much does it cost your parents to live? Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, all right, so I'll text my mom. Literally, I texted my mom.
How much do I need to make? Yeah.
And I didn't even tell her what it was about.
Okay.
I was like, hey mom, how much do you make a year? So she could travel a little bit or something like that. Cool. That's the dollar amount. So like, I just try to work on making these options come to reality. Okay. Right? So one of those options was being remote. So when I left EY, I went to work for a company called Moxie, which is owned by a parent company called it's like probably one of the biggest marketing companies in the world called Publicis. And Moxie, super cool. They have an office here in Atlanta. Well, everybody's remote now, but because of COVID. But yeah, so went to work there, and I talked to my director, and I was like, hey, I've always wanted to go. I didn't word it like this, actually. I talked to my supervisor. I was like, I've always wanted to work remotely. It's a thing I've always wanted to do. I want to do this in college. I even asked my professor, I was like, hey, is it unrealistic for me to want to work remotely straight out of college? She was like, no, it's not. But she was like a software developer. So I think she was answering based off of her field. Mm-hmm. So this is something I've always wanted, to work remotely. So when I was at Moxie, I was like, if I can just get these skills, if I can get this set of skills, I'll be able to leave Moxie and become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel that way at EY. Mm-hmm. I was like, the skills that I'm gaining here, it's stuff that like big banks pay for. Okay. And I can't, like, they're not going to hire David. They're going to hire EY to do the work, and David works for EY. Mm-hmm. But the skills that I can gain at a place like Moxie, I could work for a day. I could, connect with the David Shans and do this for him. I could do this for small businesses. Yeah. And work for myself. Yeah. Right. So to answer your question, this exit strategy, a part of it was like being remote, like, because that was one of my options. I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur that works from anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So I need to go out there, just get out there, even while I'm in corporate. Let me see if I could work out a remote situation and just be out there. Mm-hmm. And then the other part that we talked about earlier today was the finance part. Right. I was like, okay, well, how much money do I need? Mm-hmm. Like, how do I know I have enough money saved up to quit my job? Like, how do I know when that has happened? For me, I had to answer the question. First of all, I had to answer the question, how many clients do I need to live, to make a living, like to make a full-time living, right? I was like, all right, I get like 3 clients, I'm good. Mm-hmm. So, okay, cool. So how long would it take me to get 3 clients if this is what I was doing full-time? And I was like, man, I could probably do it in like 4 months or something. Like 4 months? There's no way I can't have 3. Honestly, I thought it was less than that. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, just to be safe, I'll give myself 5 months. In 5 months, I have almost 100% certainty I could get 3 clients. Like, there's no way I'm like 5 months from now, I'm still full time trying to get clients, and I'm still not like. Yeah. I work in marketing. Like, my whole thing is getting people. Right, right. So there's no way I'm gonna do this. Yeah. So
did you have a plan on how you were gonna do it?
I did, but I didn't execute that plan. Mm-hmm. Things did not go according to plan at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way your one client worked out really does tie back to like your organic strategy. So like, what was your plan that even if you didn't execute, what was your plan to get clients? My plan to get clients was, so I have friends who, and we got to get back to the crazy story. This is a huge part of my story. Mm-hmm. But my strategy to get clients was, okay, I'm just going to do outreach. So I was like, I'm going to do outreach for a specific niche. Yeah. Right. So whether that's real estate brokers, coaches and consultants, mm-hmm. Credit repair people, dentists, surgeons, LASIK, whatever. I need to pick a niche. Mm-hmm. This was my strategy. Pick a niche. Mm-hmm. Reach out to like X number. So let's say reach out to 100 people only in that one niche. Yeah. Every single day. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some sort of like, okay, so let's say I reach out to 100 LASIK eye surgeons on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I go on LinkedIn, I look up LASIK eye surgeons, I reach out to 100 of them every day. Yeah. Every day, there should be about, I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but let's just make something up. Let's say 30 of them might even just respond to my message out of that 100. Mm-hmm. Out of that 30, 20 might book a call with me. Out of that 20 that book a call, 10 might even show up to the call that they booked. Out of the 10 that show up to the call that they booked, 5 might actually close. Yeah. But now I don't know what those numbers are yet. Mm-hmm. All I know is I need to reach out to 100 clients every day so I can figure out what that looks like. Right at each step. Yeah. But once I figure out what that looks like, if I know it takes me reaching out to 100 people to close 5 clients, if I want 10 clients, I need to reach out to 200 people on average, right?
Yeah.
So that was like my strategy. I was like, and then once I close them, and then I know how to do the work, I'll just do the marketing work that I already know how to do. Yeah. Right? That was a strategy. I was like, I'm going to pick a niche and then run this play that I just explained to you. That it didn't work out quite that way. So I ended up quitting. I had my 5 months saved up. Actually, I had more than that saved up. I lost a bunch of money.
Doing what?
I lost like $5,000 in crypto.
Oh, you were investing?
But it was investing, but not the way everybody else is investing now.
But wait, why did the organic client attraction not work for you? Like you just said,
I didn't get the chance to start.
Oh, because you got your clients before you ever had to pull the trigger on the strategy. Yeah. It would have definitely worked, but I got you. Yeah. That's why you laugh, because it's like when, I got you. You had a whole...
I had it all planned
out. But you know what, I'm not sure if you're a religious person or a spiritual person, but when we do the work, literally God blesses us. It's like you did all the work, the thought work. You were going to do it, right? And he's like, okay, you serious? Let me go ahead and bless you with 3 clients real quick. You're like, thank you.
It just happened that way. Like, it was really random. And I'll tell you how I got David Chance too as a client. So that was my plan. It didn't work out that way. I also, another thing that happened that really threw me for a loop was I put in my resignation letter in December, in the December 2nd. Put in my resignation letter. And then at the end of December, like the week of Christmas or like the week before, I lost $5,000 because of a mistake I made in crypto. And that $5,000 was a huge chunk of my runway. And I was like, that's when the like anxiety was like, what do I do? Because my plan is messed up. What do I do? Like, this $5,000 is a huge chunk.
A month or two? No, like a month.
In Mexico?
Oh, yes. That's what you didn't even tell us that. Okay, so you had the runway, but then you like, okay, well, I'm going to make this $5,000 plus whatever still is left. I'll make it work in Mexico. Yeah. So, cause you didn't even share that part.
Yeah. So,
So $5,000 was like,
it was a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang. So I could either go crawling back. I put in my resignation letter. And be like, I need a couple more months.
Say that back. Sure, we'll give you a couple more.
That joint hurt.
Oh, you did go back?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah.
You were just like, okay.
No, I didn't go back. I was like, man, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go back, or am I just gonna have to be more aggressive, right? Instead of reaching out to 100, I'm gonna have to reach out to 400 every day, 500 every day. I'm just have to increase the output to like shorten the time in which the end result happens.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if we're both trying to do the same thing and I'm reaching out to 100 LASIK eye surgeons a day and you're reaching out to 1,000, guess who's gonna get there quicker, right? It's just math. So I was like, I could increase the output and believe that it's gonna work, or go back. Yeah. And I was like, I cannot go back. I'm done. I'm like mentally
checked
capped.
out.
Like I don't even have the brain cells to do that work anymore. Yeah, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna pull the trigger. And I did it. I left, and I was just like, it's gonna happen. That same what was it? So this was the like Christmas break. I came home to see my family, and I was in Dallas, where Courtney lives. I was in Dallas because my cousin lived. Well, I have cousins in Dallas. I went to go visit them. One of my cousins, she worked for Courtney, and so she worked.
Is Courtney still at Shane's?
Nah, Courtney has her taxes. Courtney from the boot camp.
Oh,
yeah, that Courtney. Yeah, she's my other client. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, she's my other client. So my cousin worked for Courtney, and so me and my girl cousin worked for Courtney, but her older brother, we went to go pick her up from work from Courtney's office. So we're like, yo, we're downstairs, come out, we gotta go. She's like, no, David, come upstairs. There's somebody I want you to meet. So I go upstairs and I'm like, hey, she's like, yo, this is my cousin David I was telling y'all about. And she's like real, like this super high energy person. Yeah. Like, yeah, David, tell him what you do, bro. So I was like, oh yeah, I run ads or whatever. And I'm like, cool. Cause at that time, my cousin was like, I gotta connect. She had been telling me about Courtney. She was like, I gotta connect y'all. Like, I think this would be a great connection to have. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I had told her in the past, like, cause I knew the plan. I was like, if she's not in this niche, you know what I'm saying? Like, it won't make sense because I'm trying to, But this was after I lost this chunk of my runway. So I'm a little bit more open-minded.
Okay, open-minded.
Open-minded, so I'm like, cool. So I'm in the room. It's Courtney there, and a friend of hers named Reggie. And I'm talking to them. I'm like, oh, what do you guys do? And they're telling me. I'm like, okay. So what do you guys do, like, for your marketing? And they're explaining it to me. And I can tell by their answer that they know nothing about ads. And I'm like, okay, that's important. What you guys are doing is important. But there's this whole other world that y'all don't know about. And I was like, okay, here's a 5-minute crash course on what y'all need to know. And I did something similar to what I did at the boot camp today, but in person.
Yeah.
And I remember Courtney sitting there looking at me like, she just looking at me like, wide-eyed and like mind blown. And she's like, yo, do you realize like people will pay like $10,000 for the information you just gave me in 5 minutes? I didn't know any of that, nothing. And I was like,
will you pay? Well, I am taking clients.
She's like, no, like, let's connect. I really want to work with you. I just want to, can we hop on the phone so we can talk about how I can become your client? And the Reggie too was like, yo, let's link up tomorrow, blah, blah.
What? Two clients in one?
So I'm like, cool, link up with Reggie. And we hung out. We spent the morning together, and I kind of went more in depth. He had a whiteboard in his office, so I'm like drawing stuff out. I'm like, here's how funnels work. Da, da, da. And then at the end, when I'm leaving, he has a school. He has like a JUCO that he runs in Dallas called RPA College. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, I'm like, yo. And at this point, I'm a huge fan of the Social Proof podcast. Love it, right? And I'm like, yo, what you're doing here, like the project you're working on, I can't remember this guy's name, but I couldn't even remember the name of like the podcast. I didn't even remember David Shan's name, and I listened to it all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I'm like that. Like I can listen to a whole album and not even know the artist's name. Like I don't know why my brain works like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he's like, oh, you talking about and I was like, what's his name? He's like, oh, you talking about David Shan from the Social Proof Podcast? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I know him. And I was like, word? He's like, yeah. He literally pulled out his phone. He's like, look, I literally just texted him the other day. I was like, yo, it is such a small world. And at this point, I actually was being somewhat consistent with the podcast that I had started and like dropped. I was like, yo, I have this list, and I have like 10 people on this list. And it's my dream guests. And he's on that list. Ooh. So like just the fact that I now know someone who knows him, like it's real now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's about to be on my podcast.
Yeah, you thinking podcast.
This is going to be on my podcast.
Yeah.
And so whatever, that conversation kind of just ended there. Okay. And fast forward a couple months, actually Courtney became my client like shortly after that conversation.
Okay.
Then after that, fast forward a couple months, I'm like, okay, I think I need to pick up another like client or two. And I wasn't trying to like scale super, because I had no interest in scaling a marketing agency.
Thank you so much for watching the Work and Play podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Boss Up Conference, which is a community for entrepreneurs, CEOs, celebrities, and corporate executives to come together, network, and solve some problems. Thank y'all so much for being supporters of the Work and Play podcast. And thank you for watching the Work and Play podcast and all the episodes before. Now let's get back to the episode.
Wasn't niche. Because I was like, I can't scale that. Like all my friends that have marketing agencies, they literally they work with one type of client and they have that client figured out.
Okay.
So whenever they bring in a new client, they can make big promises and they could deliver on it because they've done it over and over and over with the same person. So they're able to scale and automate and outsource super easily.
Yeah.
Because once they figure out what type of thing works on the marketing end, as soon as they figure it out, they hire out for it. As soon as they figure out how to do the outreach and get new people in the door, as soon as they figure out the formula, they hire out for it. And then over time, there's just a team doing every portion that they've figured out. Right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that.
That was your model.
That was my model. I was like, I don't want to work with one person who does this, one person who does that, because I'll just have to keep starting over.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do it. So, now I'm at the point where I've quit my job. I'm back in Mexico. I was only here to see my family for Christmas. I go back to Mexico. The first 6 months, so from July 2020 to December 2020, I spent that time in Mexico.
Okay.
I was working for my job at Moxie.
Yeah.
For Christmas, I come home to see my cousin in Dallas and see my mom in Atlanta. And I had quit my job in December 2020. January 2021, I go right back to Mexico. Because I'm I need to stretch out the money I have as long as possible, and the cost of living is about a third where I'm living. Okay. So I go back to Mexico after a few months of being in Mexico, 2 or 3 months. I'm like, I need 1 or 2 more clients. So I start doing outreach. I'm like, who would I like to work with? So okay, I made a list of everyone that I would actually like to work with. Yeah. Once I made that list, I was like, okay, let me do an analysis of their business and see where I can add value. So I started doing that for each person. I was like, okay, some of them, I was like, I can't add value. They pretty much got it figured out. Cool. Okay, yeah. Chance, however, he's one of the people on the list. And I was like, yo, this guy doesn't even have a Facebook pixel on his site. And he has 200,000 followers. And this is ridiculous. The amount of money he's losing out on by not having this is insane. And I was like, cool. So you know what Loom is? Yeah. Okay, so I used Loom, recorded a 3-minute video explaining that. I was like, hey, here's what a Facebook pixel is. Yeah. Here's what it does. Here's why it's important to businesses. Here's how I know your website does not have it. I can install it for you for free, no strings attached. Let me know if it's something you'd be interested in. Left it at that. DM'd him the video of that screen recording. But I was like, he's not going to see it because he has so many people in his DMs. So I was like, Reggie. Got you. So I texted Reggie and I was like, yo, I don't know. I know you said you and Shans were cool. I don't know how cool, but if y'all are cool to the point where you could text him and send him this video I recorded for him, could you forward it to him? If not, I completely understand. I'll find some other way to reach him. My plan B was I'm going to join the morning meetup. Hey. I'm going to become a super engaged member. Yeah. So he notices me. Yeah. As soon as he notices me, boom, I'm going to do the same thing. So plan B was just going to take a little bit longer. Yeah. But I was like, it's going to work. Yeah. It's foolproof. Yeah. So luckily plan A worked. Yeah. Plan A worked. And,
you probably would have fell in love with the morning meetup, but you would be prone to more distractions.
Yeah. I'm grateful it worked out. So that's how I connected with him. Reggie told him, hey, check your DMs. There's this guy, he's running ads millions of dollars for Marriott, and he hyped me up. And he was Shane was like, yo, what's up? Let's link. And we connected, and I explained it to him on the call. I was like, okay, so here's what you need, blah, blah. I'll set it all up for free. No strings attached. Yeah. I'm a fan of the podcast. I'll just do it for you. Yeah. And for me, it was Again, this is something I've done a lot too before, like even when I worked at corporate, like this concept of give free value away before you ask for anything. Like that's something I've known to do.
Even if you never have to ask for anything?
Sometimes. Like for me, yes, that's just in my nature, but sometimes I'm like, yo, I'm gonna just do this for Ariel because of who she is. And because of who she is, I can see us somehow crossing paths again in the future. So we might not,
right?
But we might.
Yeah.
And she might be like, "Dang, I remember David did that thing for me." And like now he's in a position where he needs this thing that I specialize in. Let me look out for him, or let me connect him to this person. Whereas you might not have been inclined to do that had I not. You know, and it might never happen, but I just plant those seeds. And like I'm like, baby, they'll grow or whatever, right?
That's
if they do, they're dope, right?
Yeah.
So so that worked out. Ended up he's like, oh dang, okay, so but like what else do you do? Can you run ads? Can you do this? And I was like, I sure can, but that's not free. So that's how I got Shans. Yeah. So now we are in the present moment. We've like did the now we're here. We're here. So crazy story time.
Okay. I got another question.
Oh, go for it.
Okay, I got another question, but then we can go to the crazy story.
Yeah.
How did you know the value of your skill set as an entrepreneur while you were still employed?
How did I know the value of my skill set? This kind of ties in to the crazy story. Okay.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. So 2019, I'm at EY, and I've never ever experienced depression. I don't even experience anxiety all that much, but I was experiencing misery. I was miserable. Like I was just, every day I woke up and I was just like, man, this sucks. Like I really don't like this reality that I'm living in. Yeah. And I was like, man, I remember watching this interview with this dude I love. He has a YouTube channel called Impact Theory. His name's Tom Bilyeu. Okay. And he does interviews too. He does stuff like this, right? Nice. He interviews really dope people.
I'm looking him up.
Yeah, you got to. I'll send you his stuff. So he did this interview with this dude named Jay Shetty, who I also love. Okay. And Jay Shetty is this dude, this guy who like Indian guy who grew up, I think, in London, and was like kind of on track to go work for like Google, Apple, all these companies, but then scratched it and decided to go become a monk for 3 years. Did that for 3 years, then came back into corporate. Like a crazy, like really cool dude.
Jay Shetty, is he like a super motivational?
Yes.
Oh, I know, and I actually follow him. Okay, got you. Shows how much.
So him and Tom were having a conversation, and they were just talking about this kind of stuff. And Jay said he was like, it's him and my best friend. They both said something to me that really, really like was like lit a fire under me. Jay Shetty, this was after what my best friend said. So Jay Shetty said, look at the person. Wherever you are, whatever company you're in, wherever you're working, look at the person who is where you would be 8 years from now in that company, and ask yourself, do I aspire to have that person's life? And if the answer is no, you need to because that's where you're going, right? Yeah. So think about reevaluate what's happening if the answer is no. Yeah. Because you're on a fast track to that guy. Yeah. And I was looking at my senior manager. I have no interest in becoming him. I just don't, that's not where I would. I was like, damn, I never thought about that. And he also said something along the lines of, if you're feeling this internal friction, you're not really happy with where you are in life, he's like, this is what I always do. I always ask myself, I think he said it's 3 E's: my environment, my element, and my energy. He's like, one of those 3 things is off. If I feel off, it's always one of those 3 things. So I just need to identify which one and fix it. And so for me, when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, it's my environment, because I don't feel like I fit here. And my element. Like I'm not in my right, like how I told you, I'm a product guy, like strategy and like designing product and like that type of stuff. And I was like, I'm not really getting that from here, you know? And so but before that, I remember having that frustration working at my corporate job, talking to my best friend, who he's top 3 smartest guys I know. And he was like, I was like, man, I'm just so frustrated now. And what's even more frustrating is I can't really figure out why I'm so unhappy with like my life right now. And I just feel like I just feel like I want more, and I feel like I'm good enough to get what I want, but I don't understand what is in between me and what I want. Like that's where I'm blind, and it's really frustrating to not be able to see that so I can do something about it. And he's like, well, your problem is that you don't possess a high value skill that you can sell in the marketplace. And he was like, you're a great dude, bro. Like you're funny, you have a great personality, you're fun to be around, but none of that matters in like economics. He's like, here it's literally, because he's like, and I could see you even like seeing someone who has that thing that you want on the other side, and you might be thinking like, dang, like I feel like I'm even more capable than that person, but he has it and somehow I don't.
Yeah.
And he's like, and that guy might be a jerk and he's mean to people and whatever. He's like, but he possesses a high value skill that he sells in the marketplace for a high like ticket.
Yeah.
And he gets paid for that skill. That's it. They don't care if he's a jerk or whatever. It's about the skill.
Yeah.
And then that's what got me thinking like, well, okay, then what can I get? What's a ticket, high value skill that I can get, that I can sell in the marketplace as David? I can go into the marketplace and offer this to people. And that's how this whole marketing thing came about. So I started taking courses. Took a course by this guy named Jabril Agoro. He has a dope YouTube channel. You wouldn't even know he does marketing, because that's not his like public thing. He's like a travel blogger, but he runs a whole like super successful marketing agency.
That's dope.
Took a course by him. At the end of the course, he interviews one of his most successful students, dude named Leo. Interviews Leo. And I had already planned, my plan was I'm going to take Jabril's course, I'm going to go through it. At the end of the course, I'm going to connect with Jabril. I'm going to offer him to work for him for free. And I'm going to leverage the fact that I work at EY. Okay. I'm like, yo, you're getting a high caliber, like I'm not just work for you for free and I'm just BSing. Like you're getting somebody who does 16-hour days at a high level and puts out like quality work.
Yeah.
He interviews this student of his. He's like, yo, this is my student, blah, blah. I've been mentoring him, and I just wanted to like, share a success story. He's like, he's been doing it for 2 years, and he's been in the marketing space for 2 years, and he's doing really well for himself, blah, blah. So I'm like, forget Jabril. Jabril's so far ahead of me. I need to talk to this guy. Because he's been doing it for 2 years, and he's where I want to be in the next year. Yeah. Like Jabril's like, you know what I'm saying? Like just way out. He's like Jay-Z level. Yeah. So I reach out to that student, Leo, message him on Facebook. Leo, my name's David. I am one of Jabril's students. I saw his interview with you. How much I said, how much? I do this all the time now. I didn't even ask, do you? I say, how much do you charge for a 1-hour consulting call? Just in case they don't even do it, I'm giving them the chance to just offer it now, right? Like you, and I'm saying like, how much do you charge? You put your price on it. Yo, this man said $250. I was like, run it. Send me the link right now. Paid him the $250 for the hour. At the end of that hour, Ariel, I felt guilty. I no lie, I felt guilty. I felt like, I was like, should I tip him? Cause I was mind blown. Like I'll say the value of the information I got in the hour I spent with him was worth more than the value of the information I got in my 4 years of my bachelor's degree. Hands down, no, like not even close. And I was like, yo, this is wild. I was like, okay, all right, cool. What can I do now? So I was like, yo, Leo, so here's where I'm at. I need to, at the beginning of 2019, I wrote down that I want to switch how I acquire my income from data and analytics to marketing. But in order for me to do that, I really need to get my hands dirty. I've taken your mentor's course. Would you allow me to work for you for free? So the value exchange is you get free work from a high caliber person.
Yeah.
And I get to get my hands dirty and add this to my resume and say, like, I've done this.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I was actually just about to like outsource my work to someone in the Philippines, but if I can get you to do it, from you, and you learn from my mentor, like, perfect. I trust him, and if you learn from him, you know what you're doing. He said yes. I was like, cool. On his Facebook profile, he says he travels. Him and his girl, they travel full time. Like, they literally just travel the world all year long. They just bounce around the globe. And he posted on Facebook. At this point, 2019, I'm in Atlanta still. I'm still here working at EY. He posts on Facebook. He says, I'm in Mexico for 2 months. Whoever's here, hit me up so we can link. I'm like, he's in Mexico. This guy's probably never going to get any closer to Atlanta than Mexico. I was like, boom. He already agreed to let me work for him for free. I was like, yo, how about I just come to Mexico and just shadow you for like a week or so?
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, come up. Sure.
This was before Corona too.
Yeah, it's pre-COVID.
That's lit. This all is aligning perfectly.
Pre-COVID. So,
and you hadn't had the idea to move to Mexico before.
No.
This is aligning. It's so crazy.
So I'm like, boom, all right.
And that which stretches your runway. You know what I'm saying? That
was what opened my eyes to just living like that. Because he had been living like that for 2 years. So just being around people who were just, that was their norm. He was like, yo, we don't even know people who don't do this. He's like, all our friends do this. So whenever we meet people who don't do this, to us, it's like weird. Yeah. And we're like, oh, you just like live in
one place.
So like,
what? You don't get all A's? What?
Yo, I was like, okay, all right, this is different. So,
wow.
So work for him for free. He doesn't pay me a dime. I work for him for free. I went to Mexico to see him in March. I had 10 vacation days at EY. I used all 10. I was like, and that was for the year, and it was in March. So in my head, I'm like, yo, after I link with this dude and learn this, I'm not going to be here for too much longer. So these vacation days don't even matter. Used up all the vacation days, go to Mexico, spend 10 days shadowing him. That was the most like educational 10 days of my life. I come back, and now I'm like, yo, I'm ready I gotta go now. So I start like working with him, and after like maybe like a month or so, I started applying for jobs. And on my resume, I'm putting his company, and I'm putting all the work I'm doing for him. I apply for a bunch of marketing jobs in Atlanta. I get called in, and I get the interview at Moxie. Literally everything I talk about is what I've done with Leo. I just like pretty it up, but I know what I'm doing because I've done it, and I've done it with somebody at a high level. Get the job at Moxie so mind you, me and Leo link in March. I get the job at Moxie in June. Okay. Right? So 3 months later, I'm at Moxie in June. And my whole plan is I'm going to go here and get paid now. Because 3 months now, no pay. But that's fine because there's a value exchange. So I'm like, now the value exchange is going to be different. Now it's going to be, I'm going to actually get paid to do the same work. But I'm learning. And as soon as I feel like I've learned enough to leave and do this by myself, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. That was the play. Start there in June 2019 and put my resignation letter December 2020.
6 months.
No, 18, right? So like the second half of 2019.
2019, yes. Sometimes I really do believe 2020 doesn't count. I think my mind has not already. My subconscious.
That whole year.
My subconscious is like, yeah, what? Yeah, okay, got you. 18 months. Mm-hmm.
18 months. I'm like, I get to the point where I'm like, yeah, man, I'm pretty much, I got it. I got most of, like, you know, like that whole 80-20 rule. Like, I'm like, I have 80% of what I need, and this is enough to like bounce and do my own thing, and start like crossing off like some of these options, you know.
So just for clarification's sake,
you find what you look for. Yeah. Right? Like you find what you truly are looking for. Like you just start to see it. It's like it's there, but you just can't see it until you're really, really looking for it. So for me, it was like, that was a point where I was like, I have to find this. It was like a must now. You know what I'm saying? So I just start seeing things, and like, I'm like, all right, like, you know, like my friend could have said that same thing the year before and it would have just went in and out, you know, but like, because it aligned with like what I was trying to find, it just reinforced that like even more, you know?
Yeah. All right. I have been on a ride of my life, and for so many reasons. I'm so glad we did this interview for so many reasons. And I'm so glad you guys got a chance to watch the entire thing without the camera going dead, because this is such a blessing. Y'all was supposed to get this story. I was supposed to get this story.
That's hilarious.
So to bring it all full circle, you are now, you know, working with large influencer. I think they would say macro influencers. You're now parlaying your experience, your skill set into your entrepreneurial endeavors, and you're doing it all in Mexico. Yeah. So, you know, I could ask you what work and play means to you, but I kind of just want to know like how you're enjoying life now compared to, you know, 3 years before you decided, or not 3 years before you decided, but way before you decided to run the play, and how long it took you to run the play. Just what does that feel like?
I was just talking to one of my boys about this, because he's like, yo, I'm about to buy a one-way ticket to Europe. And just go. I'll come back when I'm done being there. But I was talking to him about the same question, and I was like, bro, you don't understand, like the biggest thing that has changed for me isn't even like financial. It's like all mental. It's like 95% mental, because I just feel light. I literally go to bed excited to wake up. I'm like, yo, I can't wait for tomorrow. Cause I'm like, tomorrow I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, I'm still working. I don't work any less than I did at my corporate job. I probably work a little bit more now. But it's like, I'm not doing anything I don't want to do. Like, you know how you be at work? You're like, man, I'm not trying to be doing it. Like, that doesn't exist. Yeah. And like the amount of and I don't know if because I haven't talked to a lot of people who have gone through this journey. So I don't know if it's just a me thing, or if other people would say that like, yeah, bro, like I feel that way too. Yeah. But it's just, I go to bed and I'm like excited. Yeah. I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I could just take a Wednesday off if I want. Yeah. And nothing's gonna happen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, because like who's gonna do what? Like no one's gonna do anything. Like, but I can work Saturday and Sunday and just take off Monday and Tuesday, and just, it's up to me. So the flexibility that I have now, it's like, again, I work just as much, but no one controls when I work. So that makes a big difference for me personally. Two, because I'm not doing anything I don't want to do. I'm working on everything I'm working on is stuff I'm excited to work on, I want to work on. I no longer have this weight of using my brain cells to like do a task that someone else put on me that I have no interest in doing, that's not going to impact my life in any way. Like that has been, I just feel light, like light. Like it's, yeah, it's been a more of a mental blessing than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll say ditto. I don't know if this is because I'm a woman, but I would say even though there are not so good days, even my not so good days are still great days. Cause I'm like, I can spend my bad day however I want to spend my bad day.
Yeah.
I might not be feeling it, but I literally get to wake up and my view is, it just always reminds me when I'm having a crappy day, I'm like, you are blessed. Like it's a whole different feeling.
It is.
Even when I'm like, I'm waking up and it's like I said, if I'm in a moody mood, I still get to talk to my clients. My clients are probably the brightest part of my day because I'm like, let's think through a strategy. You want to leave your job? Let's do it together. And so after I leave a call where somebody's as eager to figure out the answer, and I'm like, how can I be of service? You know, it makes me feel good for an hour, and then I might go back into my mood. But I enjoy being able to control my day. You literally just...
I can relate to that because, like, and I don't know if it's coming across like I don't have bad days. Not the case, right?
Not that it's coming across. You only share the good parts, so yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, like, there are challenging days. But, again, like, for me, like, okay, so there's two types of bad days or challenging days. There's personal and professional. So you could have like those challenges be like you're just dealing with personal stuff, right? So that personal stuff, that's going to be there whether you're, you know, in corporate or not, right?
I've gotten so many questions about this brand, and I'm super excited to share that this episode is sponsored by Black is Wealth Clothing. Now, Black is Wealth was created to inspire and empower our culture to tap into our wealth. Now, when we talk about wealth, we're not just talking about financial wealth, we're talking about the strength, resilience, and brilliance that lives inside of all of us. Now, by tapping into our wealth, we can create any form of wealth that we desire. So, if you like this shirt or any other shirt that you've seen me sport on my Instagram or any other platform, then go check them out at blackiswealth.com. I love this one, and y'all are gonna love it too. Now let's get back to the episode.
The reason I did this was because I didn't know why I was feeling what I was feeling. It wasn't obvious to me. So I was like, let me try to like let things out and see if I could identify what's causing this stuff. So I was like, this fear, oh dang, okay, yeah, I am kind of scared to disappoint my family. Another one was worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, disappoint your family. Worst case scenario, run out of money and be embarrassed by the fact that you just failed in business. Worst case scenario, run out of money and can't afford to support yourself financially and end up sleeping on your best friend's couch until you find another job. Boom, wrote that down. So I'm like writing down all the worst case scenarios so I can see what it looks like to really, like the absolute worst, right? Cool, once I finished that, on the other side I wrote best case scenario. What does this look like if it goes well? What does it look like if it goes well? Not even like to the moon well, just well.
Yeah. Let's temporary.
Yeah, just well, right? So on the left side, I went as negative as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I just went well.
Yeah.
Right? Not the best case scenario. I was okay. What does going well look like? Okay, going well looks like I have the flexibility to work when I want, where I want. Going well looks like I have the option to get paid not by the hour, but by how much value I deliver, and I can scale that. I can like if right now I could decide, okay, instead of running the ads for Shans. Oh, did I just turn off this mic? No, did I?
No, you're good.
Okay. Instead of running the ads for Shans, I'll train Ariel on how to do it. Okay. And then I'll have her do it, and I'll bring on another client. Yeah. And I'll run that person's ad until I find somebody to do that. Right? So I can scale, right? Versus at my job, I remember looking around feeling like, yo, that guy is going 120%. That girl is going 30%. They make the same amount of money. The money they make is not a reflection of the value that they provide. So I was like, if I can just switch that in my life, I can make way more money because I can control how much money I make by just providing more value. So that was like what it looks like going well. It was like literally setting a financial goal and having a plan to reach it. I couldn't do that in corporate. If I'm working in corporate right now and I'm like, yo, I want to increase my salary by $10,000 in the next X amount of time. That is not up to me. Yeah. Someone else makes that call, right?
Yeah.
So going well looks like having a life where I can do that. I can make that decision and have a clear path to it and actually accomplish it.
Yeah.
Going well looks like I kept writing all the things that going well looks like. Then I looked at the thing and I was like, okay, am I willing to risk this happening in order to potentially gain this? And then I like to think in binary whenever I can. So I was like, yes or no. Yes or no. Am I willing to risk this to potentially get this? Yes or no. If it's no, do not quit your job. If it's yes, quit your job. And I was like, well, it's yes. And what I realized was not only is it yes, but this worst case scenario that I'm looking at is not static, it's dynamic, meaning it's not always gonna stay this way. It's because for example, I have a friend who he has, we're the same age, but he has 5 children, right? So I could imagine him doing this exercise and our worst case scenarios looking very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like there's a lot, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when he asked that question, am I willing to risk whatever he wrote down to get this? It might not be yes
Absolutely.
for him, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, my worst case scenario isn't gonna always be this way, and I really need to take advantage of it while it's this, right? Because this is pretty like, okay, I'll sleep on my best friend's couch for a couple months and get another marketing job, and then like save up another runway and quit again anyway. Yes. Right? Like, because I'm always gonna be wanting to do this. Right, so it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
Okay, like I think my parents will judge me or whatever, but for one, maybe they won't. But even if they do, is it worth risking that to like what, you know what I'm saying? Like, what really does that do to me?
Yeah.
Like, is it worth risking that to get this stuff?
Yeah.
And like, for me, it was a clear yes.
I feel you. There was one conversation, and this is not a knock to people experiencing homelessness, because that is probably that's the impetus of my entrepreneurial endeavor. But I'm just curious, and I don't know what it was like to be a refugee in the Congo and stuff like that. But homelessness never crossed your mind?
Never. And again, that's just my worst case scenario. Because for someone else,
I was thinking, okay, could I be at a shelter? I don't want to be at a shelter.
Oh man.
But yeah, homelessness was one of mine.
That was not enough. Like, for me, because I think I have a solid support system.
Yeah.
That I don't even know if I use that much. But it's there. I know it's there. Like, I could never be homeless like that. But that's, again, my worst case scenario. So let's say me and you, let's say homelessness is on that list for both of us. Yeah. For me, I might be like, nah, I'm not willing to risk this to gain that, potentially gain this, because it's not guaranteed, right? But for you, you might be like, no, I am willing to risk that to gain this. And the reason that I'm willing to risk that, to risk homelessness to gain this, is because, okay, I'll sleep in the shelter, but for the rest of my life? No. Can I sleep in the shelter for 90 days can I risk sleeping in the shelter for 90 days to potentially gain this? And for you, it might be yes. For me, I'm like, I ain't willing to risk a day in there to potentially get this. I don't, like, that's not an option for me. So that exercise helped me, like, pull the trigger, right?
Release your anxiety?
Yeah, it did. Because the things that I wrote down weren't things that I knew in my conscious mind. They were I didn't know them. So there was these things that were causing, these subconscious thoughts that were causing emotion, that were triggering emotions. But because I didn't know what the thoughts actually were, I was just feeling the emotion. And I was like, I need to let this out so I can see the thoughts that are triggering the emotion that I'm feeling. Because I have this controversial thing. Oh man, Jovan would probably kill me for saying this out loud. But I don't believe that all of my emotions are valid. I believe that emotions are things that I need to validate. So,
Hey, Jovan, yeah, that might be the mental health folks. They might have.
They're gonna slaughter me.
But I support. I'm a social worker, so you have.
Okay,
you have my vote. You have
so
my vote.
for me, emotions are. I almost view them as like these people, or like they're these like characters in my head. And so, like, let's say for example, if you and I were dating, and like we went to a conference together and you spent like 30 minutes talking to some other guy, right? And I'm not a jealous person at all, but let's say if I was, right? And I was like feeling the emotion of jealousy, right? So I'm feeling this emotion of jealousy because I'm seeing you talk to this dude for like half an hour. I'm like, oh, what's going on, right? My process is, okay, I feel the emotion, cool. And I almost put it on trial, and it has to prove to me that it's coming from a place of truth. So I almost have a conversation with this emotion, like, okay, so why are you here, jealousy? Like, why are you here? It's like, okay, well, it's because Ariel's over there talking to Mike or whatever, and she's been over there for 30 minutes and hasn't even acknowledged me. And I'm like, and we just go back and forth, me and jealousy, and we talk. And if jealousy convinces me that it has a valid point for being here, I will accept it. And I will be like, you know what? No, I should feel this way. But if it can't make that case, and if I actually prove it wrong, and I'm like, no, you're tripping. Like, listen, it's a business conference. Like, what are you talking about? It's a business conference. Like, this is probably her way of da-da-da. And like, think about what this could do for her business. You're actually being selfish, right? Like, this is, and why am I even feeling this way to begin with? And that might take a lot more unpacking. Like, dang, here goes that thing again of like just growing up and never getting attention from my siblings or whatever. And I'm really just taking out that thing on Ariel, and that's not fair, right? So that's how I kind of like handle emotions. So it was important for me to see that left side of my list, so I can validate the anxiety or not. Like, so I could say like, is this valid? Is the anxiety that I'm feeling valid or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it? And when I looked at it, I was like, no, like I had that conversation with it. I was like, yeah, no, I understand how you could be like afraid that your parents might be disappointed in you. And I understand how you could be afraid that like you'd be judged for sleeping on your friend's couch and but yeah, no, it's not really like you should, the last question is, should I feel this? Should I? Right? And I was like, no, I shouldn't, because and like whatever counter arguments I have with that emotion that's coming to my door asking to like, you know, and with the caveat I will say with that anxiety, what I experienced was, it didn't go away. The feeling didn't go away after I did the exercise. What happened actually was that I understood it. So it allowed me to move forward despite anxiety sitting next to me and telling me like, well, I'm not leaving.
Hey guys, it's Ariel from the Work and Play podcast. If you're getting any value from this channel, and I mean anything from the tutorials to the podcast to the random videos that you see on this channel, then I just ask that you do one thing. Please subscribe. Subscribe and share this to anyone that you think this resonates with, and drop a comment below so I know what other things that you want to see next. Now let's get back to the episode.
Because if you truly didn't validate your emotions, then you would not have taken the time to like look at them and have a conversation with them to really understand them, which is the highest form of love. So when you think about it, you do validate your emotions. You also have a conversation, and you can disagree politely and move forward knowing that you don't agree. So I just want to save you on that point there for the mental health community, so that they know that you you respect your feelings, you validate your opinions, and then the ones that aren't valid, then they don't rule your life.
I validate my emotions, Jovan.
Right. So you were tying up your final words of wisdom, and I think doing that pros and cons list would certainly help people who are going through that emotional anxiety. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have created a course that is specifically suited for people to go from employee to entrepreneur. And I think this will be one of those final exercises once you've gone through everything that you need to go through, because we talk about taking calculated risks, and part of the calculation can literally be this exercise. So for my clients who are going through their process, I don't know when you're going to be watching this, but if you go through this, if you haven't already, then we're going to go through this together.
That's fine.
Because I think that's a really great exercise.
That's dope.
So for anybody who is out there who is, thank you. Your experience has been super valuable to me as a coach, as a person who's also left their job, and for people who are out there who really want to leave their job, and whether they're good at it or not good at it, there's so many conversations to have before you actually make your transition, and then whether you have an exit strategy or not, sometimes it's up to you to take that leap. So if there's somebody at home listening or watching your story and they resonate with you, David, how can they stay connected with you, and how can they work with you? What is the way for them to reach out?
That is such a good question. Work with me how?
Right.
You probably just follow me on Instagram, I guess. I'm super low key, like I'd be in the cut, you know. But like for stuff like this, obviously, like it's not what I do for a living, so I'm always happy to talk through stuff. Like if you have questions, I personally I'm more comfortable talking about my experience and not super comfortable talking like probably what you do, which is like, here's what you should do. I can't tell you what you should do, but I'm happy to like answer questions like experience wise. Oh, how did I do that? Or how did I do it? How did I go through this? How did I figure that out? But yeah, Instagram probably.
What's your app?
Or
your handle? David
Kinani. I always think Kinani is easy to spell, but it's apparently not. But it's Kinani. So just David Kinani on Instagram.
There you have it. All right, y'all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I know you guys got some value under there. So drop some comments below to just say what your biggest takeaway from this conversation was.
Also,
go ahead.
Please if you message me on Instagram, like say that you are like one of like Ariel's subscribers or something like that, because I might ignore it if you don't.
That's important.
If you're just like, hey bro, how'd you move to Mexico? I don't know who you are. I might not even respond. But if you're like, hey, I saw you on Ariel's podcast, I'll 100% you're getting a response.
Lit, okay? You guys have the go-to ticket, all right? So until next time, y'all go out there and be great. If you need to replay this video because there were so many gems dropped, go ahead and take some notes, and y'all have a blessed one. Peace out.